I'm so delighted at the success shown in marketing the event that has attracted so many distinguished people to this event. Event marketing itself is one of those things we do. So already your talent in marketing is very obvious. Now, I will make some statements about marketing and making sure that marketing and sales are not confused. Sales have taken place through 8,000 years of history, longer than that. Goes back to Adam and Eve. It goes back to the snake influencing Eve to convince Adam to eat an apple. So sales has been present all the time. Did you know that marketing is only 110 years old? Not markets. Markets have existed, but marketing as a science and an art is very new. And what it does, and Peter Drucker, who's my saint, Peter Drucker's book, you should keep reading his books about managing a business. He made the statement that the aim of marketing, ideally, is to make selling unnecessary. Now, if he's correct, then marketing cannot be sales. Sales are important, but what he's saying is you should come up with ideas to solve problems that people have. People have needs. They're not being met all the time. And a good innovator or entrepreneur sees an opportunity and creates a solution, and if it's very good as a solution, people line up to buy it. You don't have to have a salesman. All you have to do is someone to take the orders. So Peter meant that if your mentality is to create a beautiful solution for people, they will line up to buy it without you needing any sales effort whatsoever. Now, marketing has many, many dimensions to it, and that's why we are delighted in bringing some very professional experts on aspects of marketing. For example, one expertise that we need is on pricing. Are we smart when we price our product? Have we already thought through the position of our product before we price it? The price is going to be a sign of what you think your product is worth. And we will be glad to share with you some ideas on pricing. But I think most of you are more interested in what does it take to create a brand. We're living in a world of brands. I was just coming back from Milan, and there's a very famous place, it's the cathedral in Milan, Italy, and they just are so excited because 2 stores were open in this high-traffic historical part of Milan, and they're excited because one of them is Starbucks coming to Italy, and the second is the other store is Apple coming to Italy in Milan. So those are powerful brands. And the question arises, how much time does it take to build a brand? How much patience do you need? How do you know if it's working? What are the metrics that tell you that you've already succeeded in getting people aware of the brand, but they're still not buying it? What are the metrics that allow us to know whether we should continue to push our brand or give it up and start fresh? We're going to talk about that to you. Now, I have many things to talk about, and so do my collaborators. I'm going to talk about a thing that I call brand activism. And I got very interested in working on the idea that a brand has a choice. A brand could just tell what it is without taking any position about what your company believes in. We, in fact, don't, in many cases, I buy a brand and I don't know much about the company. I don't know what the company cares about, what it stands for. And now more companies, at least in my country and in some other countries, believe they want to add a purpose. They want to start not with creating a brand name, but creating a purpose for what they want to launch as a brand. And they may want to even say that our brand is not only about satisfying that purpose, but we care also about the climate, that we want to be active and let people know that we are humane. We care about society. We're a company that not only wants to do a good job, but we want to express what we think about improving the world. So we call this brand activism. Let me show you what we mean. Societies are facing a great number of difficult social problems. You know, there's hunger, there's poverty, there's crime, there's all kinds of social problems. And normally, government is supposed to take care of the social problems. But governments, in many cases, are underfunded. They don't have the money to take care of it. Even when they have the money, they are divided. In my own country, we have a gridlock. The two political parties don't work together to solve social problems. What is the implication? The implication is that someone has to work on the social problems, and maybe increasingly business should care about making the country a better country. Now, business has its own problems, and if I say to a businessman, "Are you socially responsible?" He'll say, "Yes, I've heard about corporate social responsibility, but I have enough problems. I can't take care of the world's problems." Well, more and more companies are beginning to say that there are certain problems you should show you care about. One of them is climate. And as you know, you should be running a triple line when you decide on your plan. You don't only want to maximize profits, which is the conventional thing that drives your business. That's the first line. The second one is the people line. You want to run a good company. You want your employees to be happy in your company, because if they're not happy, you're going to have turnover, you're going to have a lot of cost, and you won't get the quality of the people that you wanted. So your business has to be people-oriented as well as profit-oriented. The third thing, it must be planet-oriented. In other words, you are either helping the planet or you're hurting the planet. And so every company should take perhaps a position that they have a set of values. I mean, if I ask one of you about your business, and then if I ask you this question, what have you contributed to your society in Turkey? And you say, well, I make good products. Well, that's a good contribution. But is there something else you're doing to make life better for everyone? See, the purpose of marketing and a purpose of many businesses is to make people happier and more satisfied. So I'm going to therefore talk about this. I think businesses are also an agent of change, and they have to take some responsibility. Now, you may say, I'm doing that. Look at the money I've given to good causes. I have people knocking on my door for some help, and I'm very generous. That's fine. That's called philanthropy. And we appreciate that, but it's not enough. In many cases, we want to buy from brands that stand for something. Have you thought about that? Have you really thought about, should your brand stand for something? So let's move on. Here are two quotations from very important people. The first person, Stephen, is part of a company called Reputation. It is the Reputation Institute. By the way, it's interesting that there is an agency that will help your company improve its reputation. And here's what he said. He said, it's not enough to just have a high-quality product and deliver results on Wall Street. Social activism, aligning with communities, what you do to make the world a better place, that's the metric. And that may come as a shock, that we have to make the society a place that we contribute to. Larry Fink is probably one of the top billionaires in the world. He runs the BlackRock hedge fund, and he surprised all of the hedge fund people with this remark: society is demanding that companies serve a social purpose. To prosper over time, every company must not only deliver financial performance, but also show how it makes a positive contribution to society. There are companies that stand for something. Starbucks, Unilever, Levi Strauss, Nike, Body Shop, Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, and the list goes on. Companies that we not only buy from, but we are almost advocates of. We have become fans, just like you're maybe a fan of a sports team. I could be a fan of a company. I'm a fan of Apple. I'm a fan of a lot of companies where actually, when I'm a fan, that company doesn't have to do much marketing. Do you know the best marketing is done by the advocates, the fans of the company? So, is your company creating fans or just customers? Yes, you're trying to get engaged customers, loyal customers, but do they ever recommend you? Some of these great companies have figured out, I don't have to spend much on marketing because my fans are doing the marketing for me. Very high aspiration in that thought. The company's task is to find a relevant social problem that its customers and stakeholders and employees are thinking about. So I have this diagram, and it says, make sure you don't bring shame to your product. You want to bring favorable view, but look what happens sometimes in a business. This is an illustration of a company that makes a very important product, an EpiPen, where a person who is allergic to peanuts can die from not being told that he was eating peanuts. And he better immediately use the EpiPen and inject himself. So someone bought that company and had the nerve to move the price from $100, because it's sort of like a monopoly, to $600. Shame, shame, shame. This is regressive activism. In other words, a brand could be active in the wrong way. No brand wants to be doing that to its customers. I'm in favor of progressive activism and so on. Look, at least make your brand neutral. If you don't want to express any value in your brand, don't say anything about values. But I think if you really love your company and you really believe you are to be loved, deserve to be loved, you should express what you care about. So here's a list we use in the new book called Brand Activism. At the bottom, you'll see a range all the way from evil, which I gave you an illustration of brand shaming, to exploiting companies, to faking companies, some that say, no, just don't be evil, citizen companies, purpose brands, brand activists. You may recognize some of these brands. A number of them are sort of not really on the progressive side. There's a few, look at the ones that are on the progressive side. I can give you story after story about how admired those companies are to be by their customers and their employees. One point that is important, you're in the market for good employees. You're going to be hiring more and more millennials. One reason is you need digital people. Your organization, as a small or medium-sized business, is without even a person who's a digital native and so on. And yet you're hearing, and should be hearing, that marketing will be increasingly digital, and you're without digital people. So you go out to hire, and you find out that the digital people are in scarce supply. And they want to go to a company that has a purpose, that has values. That's the new generation. The millennials want to be, not be, they don't want to spend their time just putting some food in a box. They want to feel good about what they're doing. If you're going to compete for millennials and digital people, you've got to have purpose in your firm. And so that is a display of what is happening. So if you're going to be a brand activist, you can be activist in the social sense, the legal sense, the environmental sense, and so on and so forth. And in the book, what we do, and it gets complicated, of course, you've got to make choices. So for example, if you are going to decide, I don't want to only have a good brand, but I want it to have a purpose, and the purpose is social activism. Notice that means you may be saying, we believe so much in education that we're going to make the point of our support being to support educational development. Or we're going to be supporting hospitals. Do you have a cause? I guess I'm asking, if I see the CEO, I say, does your company have some area that you represent, you want to see improved? That's your cause. And maybe you don't, maybe you should have a cause. Maybe you have to think carefully about what are the risks of choosing a cause. Maybe some causes may make you very liked by a large group, but disliked by another group. Some of you may say, I'm not going to do that because I want everyone to like me, so I'll have no cause. I would rather say, go for it. Go for some cause which says that you care about society and you want Turkey to be one of the best countries in the world to live in and to be in. So, questions for your company. I'm going to end with these questions. Has your company ever been a brand activist? If so, what was the social problem that you were addressing in addition to whatever you make, whether you're making clothing or you're in the construction business? What was the issue? If your company has not been a brand activist, would you recommend that it becomes a brand activist? Oh yes, thanks for the idea, Mr. Kotler. I'm going to think about what problem I want to identify that bothers my family personally and my friends. And then the question will be, what will be the rewards and risks for the activist position your brand might take? And think carefully about that, and then hopefully it's helped you build a brand. Now let me just say something about brand building. I was even asked the question, what's more important, branding or marketing? You know, the overall idea is marketing. Branding is part of building success for your product. You could sell it you can sell your product just on low price, But if you can get it to be seen as a good brand or a powerful brand, that will help you make more money. But how long does it take to build a brand? And what goes into making a strong brand? These are things we want to talk about. I can tell you how Starbucks did it. Starbucks did it by deciding that they have a mission. And the mission is to make not just a fine coffee, but a great coffee experience. It's going into a place called Starbucks, sitting down or standing in line, getting one of 100 types of coffee, and also meeting your friends there, and they don't charge you for sitting there, and all that. And then they realize there's other coffee shops. What's the points of difference between us and the other coffee shops? And what's the points of similarity? You must be similar to what other coffee shops do, but you have to have points of difference. Every brand can point to 3 or 4 reasons why they're doing it differently and better. So building a brand also involves having a character and a personality in your business that can be projected. And this is not the time to get you into building a brand, but let's say that there are experts, often the advertising agencies will say, oh, you need a stronger brand and you need 30-second commercials. It's not that easy. That's not what, that would come way after. In fact, we may in a digital world not do 30-second commercials, especially if they're being blocked on your computer too, and people aren't even watching commercials. So the main point is you've got to understand that brand building is an important key process, and it's much more than choosing a name and some color like yellow for Kodak or Caterpillar and another color for another company. It's so much more. We will try to help you understand. We want Turkey to be a country of strong brands around the world. Some of your neighboring countries, particularly Italy, has done that. Italy has done that. I walk right through your airport and I see Italian brands. It could be the Chinese airport. There should be Turkish brands that I can pass by in the airport. That's our hope for you. That's our hope in working, if we can, with you. So thank you very, very much. We'll move on to the next set of ideas. Thank you.